Good morning and welcome to episode 15 of Cervello Live. Hope you're doing well. I'm looking out the window and the weather is changeable, to be honest. It's a bit strange today. The clouds are dark, but hopefully it'll improve for later. We've got a action-packed show today. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how much action there'll be in there, but hopefully there'll be some really good financial and business insights you can use to clarify your financial future or potentially improve your business over the next few months and years. I'm joined today by a really special guest. It's David. Hello, David. How are you?
Good morning, Chris. I'm wonderful, thank you. Like you enjoying the lovely weather.
But yeah, we'll try and get tech support in to get you back.
Yeah.
I think I know why. You're going to pop up soon, hopefully.
Good.
So yeah, as I say, my name's Chris Dames. I'm from Cervello Financial. This is Cervello Live. Hopefully you've been watching the other 14 shows. They're all available on LinkedIn, all available on our website, www.cervellofp.co.uk. Hopefully I've done what I can to get David back, but I've got to press this button to find out. You're not back, David, but I'll try and fix that as we move forward with the show. So before we do anything we need to in terms of speaking to David and asking him the questions, I want to understand a bit more about his business. What I want to do is talk to you a little bit about what we're doing here at Cervello at the minute. Because what we're doing is we're doing loads of work around helping people understand what happens next with their life. Okay. Now, interestingly, the reason that's been increasingly important is because a lot of our clients have found themselves in a position where the lockdown has allowed them a bit of time to reevaluate where they are, and a lot of the new client queries we're getting coming in, again, for us to do all the standard stuff we do as financial advisors and planners, organise pensions, get people financially straight, help them work out where their future lies. We do all that as standard, but as financial planners instead of financial advisors, part of the conversation that we always have is linking the money to meaning, like making sure that we're having a conversation about the money, but linking it to what people want to achieve in their lives. So today what I want to do is talk a little bit about what happens next. So when we see a lot of the clients, they've reached a sort of crossroads in their life. So they've got to looking at what's next in their life. Now, what we do is take them through a bit of a process which is based around the acronym of NEXT. And what I want to do is just explain a little bit about what that means for our clients. So what happens next? So what does just one really important thing. When we look at somebody's well-being, and I've talked about this on the show before, we reference a really good book called Well-Being by Tom Rath and Jim Harter, which talks about all of the elements of well-being. It talks about career, it talks about social, it talks about financial, it talks about physical, and it talks about community. And as financial planners, our job primarily is to make sure that people have got financial well-being, not only now, but for the remainder of their life. And certainly what we'd expect for somebody in their mid-50s. And there's a really good little free tool that you can take a look at called How Long Does My Pension Need to Last? It's available by the Office of National Statistics. But if you just Google How Long Will My Pension Need to Last, it will give you an indication of your life expectancy to make sure that you're making sure that your money stretches as long as your life does. But certainly, once we've got that financial well-being bit in play, the other bits are really important as well. And part of our conversation with our clients is making sure those bits are in play. And one thing, as I've said already, lockdown has given us the opportunity to do is to look in the mirror and make sure that we're in a position where we truly are aiming and planning and aspiring to achieve the things that we want in life. Now, interestingly, that might be more work. I think where are the days of a retirement where you get your gold watch and you sail off into the sunset, for most people are not an aspiration they want. David, what are your thoughts about retirement? Do you think retirement is a concept that still works, or do you think most people want a bit more balance in their lives?
Oh, there's a question, Chris. I did aim to retire when I was 65.
Right.
Hasn't quite worked out. So my plans of 40, 50 years ago have gone sadly astray, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I suppose really, to be honest about it, I'd never really anticipated retiring in the formal sense.
Yeah.
I took the view that retirement was sort of almost a line in the sand, which I didn't want to have. I wanted to carry on working, do a taper, if you like, drop down to 2 days a week, but to keep the work balance going, because I find it socially stimulating to talk to people on a daily basis. I hope to some extent it keeps your mind active, it keeps you tuned into current thinking, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not decrying retired people in any way, but from my own personal perspective, I just had the view that I'd rather keep working, reduce the amount of input into work, but keep going, not until the day I die, obviously, but certainly through the 60s and 70s ages, and just keep your mind active, if you like. I never saw retirement as a traditional way forward for me. Sounds a bit dull, but there you go.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that, David, to be honest. I mean, a lot of our clients, even though they are in a position where they've got enough financial well-being, they're financially secure enough to stop work, they choose not to, because, as you say, work brings additional benefits, doesn't it? It brings the social side, it brings a sense of meaning and purpose. It brings a number of things that aren't only about the money.
Yeah, there's an altruistic perspective as well there, Chris, and as much as you've gained a lot of experiences over your life, during your working life anyway, and it's good to, if you put it this way, impart that knowledge to other people. Having done it, been there, made the mistakes, you don't want people entering into a business life to make the same mistakes that you made. I'm quite happy to sort of say, look, I did that, but I've got my fingers burnt. Don't go down a route that you really want. So I think, it is a bit of a self-indulgent view, if you like, but I think it's helpful to young aspiring entrepreneurs that they can get the benefit of somebody who's been there, done it. And,
I agree. I agree. So certainly what lockdown's provided is an opportunity for a lot of our clients and new clients who are approaching us to look in the mirror and say, what does my future really look like? And our experience is that with our clients, they get to a point, and for our clients typically it's between 55 and 65, sometimes a little bit younger, sometimes a little bit older, where they look at their life and say, what does the next few decades look like? And what we've done is build, and what we're doing at the minute is building a framework around that to help clients identify what they need to achieve in the future. And that, what we've done is use the acronym of NEXT, so NEXT. And what we've done is we've said N stands for navigate, E stands for evaluate, X stands for, and I've cheated on this one, David, because I didn't want to use X-ray. X stands for execute, and T stands for track. And what that is the 4 component parts of making sure that your financial plan is on track, but also you've got overall well-being. And I just want to talk to you about what we'd expect to see if you go and see any financial planner to help you do this, in terms of the steps that you you should go through. And the first one is navigate. So navigate is like you'd put your destination into a GPS. The navigate step is saying, where do I want to go over the next 10, 20, 30 years? Where does my next few decades look like? And that's around hopes, goals, aspirations. A lot of our clients' aspirations are related to family, so they're related to making sure that they can help their kids out if they've got financial security. But it's also about more than that. And what we find is that a lot of our conversations are about, as you said, David, purpose and meaning, and having a relevance and giving back a bit. I mean, it's really interesting how your perspective changes in our experience when you want to be helping other people as opposed to just trying to get to a point where you're financially secure enough to do that. Now, I'd argue that you should do that all the way along, but certainly making sure that you're doing that. Now, interestingly, the questions that you should be asking yourself at this navigate stage is, why do you get up in the morning? What's your purpose in life? That's a really important one. You know, what would make you jump out of bed in the morning? But also, from the well-being perspective, what level of income do you need for the remainder of your life if you could afford the life you genuinely want? If we look at physical well-being, what would be an ideal diet and exercise, and how many hours per day would you like to feel energised? If it was about career, if you had total control and autonomy of your time, how would you choose to spend it? And certainly a lot of our clients, when they've approached a stage in life where they're thinking about making a change, do start businesses, because they might have had careers in corporate life, and business allows them freedom and control of time to do exactly what they want. Community wellbeing is really important, and it goes back to the point that David made about giving back to your community. So how would you spend your time based on you being completely financially secure to give back? And that might be to help future entrepreneurs. We as a business do financial education in schools to give back to our community and sponsor a local kids football team and do all sorts of other stuff. But certainly that look in the mirror, time to reflect, then allows you to take a look at that. And then certainly the other one is social. So what we find is that people have got to a certain age, have linked social with their work quite a lot, and found themselves in a position where work's gone because they've decided to stop and go and do something else. And they need to think about how they connect and reconnect with friends. So certainly they're the elements of well-being we'd look at. So that said, what we then look at after N is we've navigated, we know where the destination is. The evaluation element is seeing where we are today. So that's all about making sure that we understand where we are financially. We know what we need to achieve, what income we need to achieve total financial well-being. And that will give us typically a gap. And what we need to do then is navigate that gap. Now, we've had clients who thought they had a gap, but actually when we did the maths, worked out that they could have sort of made changes in their life a couple of years ago. So certainly it's not always a case of there being a gap. But certainly what we find is that if there's not a gap in financial, the reason that the individual's wanting to make a change is there might be gaps in other areas. So for example, in career well-being, they might not be enjoying work as much as they should. In physical well-being, they keep on meaning to go to the gym, but they just don't seem to find the time. So all of those things should be evaluated. Then it's time to take some action. So typically if there's gaps in any area of well-being, we'll make a recommendation, particularly in the area of financial well-being, but understanding that we're not all economically driven primarily. We're humans, we're about people and communities and stuff like that. So our job is to focus on the financial well-being to allow somebody to take some action to improve their well-being in other areas. And then track. So the important part of what we do, and we get this a lot, is to make sure that somebody's, as their goals change and their life changes, they remain on track to achieve those new goals. The amount of times we have people who say, my goal is to have a couple of holidays a year in Spain or Italy, and then suddenly they see a friend go off shark diving or doing something really elaborate. I'm not suggesting people watching and viewing this that you should all go shark diving, clearly, but if it floats your boat, that's fine. And the reason I mention that is because I had a client who's in his early 70s now, who in the early years of retirement, and again, he's an architect. He picks the jobs that he wants to do now. So he's not fully retired, but certainly he's got more time to himself. He decided that he was going to take breaks in sunny locations that allowed him to relax. And then he realised that he had the time and the desire to actually have a few more adventures. So my last meeting with him involved him telling me that he was going shark diving in Cape Town, which scared the life out of me, but apparently it's perfectly safe. How do you feel about shark diving in Cape Town, David?
Not in a million years, mate.
See, I weirdly, I was in Cape Town 17 years ago. And my wife was there was a boat, and my wife said to me, "Would you do shark diving if you had the chance?" I said, "Yeah, definitely." I mean, I was in my mid-20s then, and what was funny was this guy approached us and said, "Would you like to shark dive?" And it was his boat, and I looked at the boat and was tempted, until I spotted quite a few holes in it that sort of put me off a bit. So I've never done shark diving, but now one of my clients have done it. I might be tempted in the future. What's the most daring thing you've ever done?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. That's a very good question. That springs to mind immediately. I think the bravest thing I'm going to do is going to go to the hairdressers next week.
Yeah, I've done that, and that was an amazing experience.
No, I'm going to brave up to that next week. I'm booked in for Tuesday, so I'm going to sort of hopefully get some of these locks sorted out. But that'll be the bravest thing locally I'll have done.
Yeah,
but,
well, I mean, I had the challenge that, as my hair was growing horizontally, that wasn't a look that I was prepared for anymore. So as soon as the barbers was open, I was there. So track is an important part of it, because our experience is that as people move into the next stage of their life, what they expected it to be like and what it's like differs, and their goals, hopes, dreams and aspirations change, particularly as their kids grow up, because again there's a lot of our clients, because they've built an element of financial security, the conversations then turn into conversations about legacy. How do I make sure my kids are okay? How do I make sure that if I die, they don't pay as much inheritance tax as they should? Conversations around that. Now, one thing I want to mention, and this isn't going to be published for the next 6 to 8 weeks, because we're doing the work on it now, is a white paper that we're currently writing for the business called What Happens Next. And if you're contemplating making some changes in your life today, feel free to send me an email at hello@cervellofp.co.uk. We're doing a survey of our typical clients, so we'd love to send you that survey to gauge your thoughts about what the next stage of your life looks like. But in addition to that, we'll make sure that when the white paper with all our research and all our findings is published, you get a copy, because I think if you're contemplating some of these issues, it's going to genuinely help you make sense of some of the decisions you need to think about as you're moving into that next stage of your life. As always, you can get in touch with us. Our phone number's on there: 01708 606 202. Chris at cervellofp.co.uk, and our website is www.cervellofp.co.uk. So, what I'm going to do is talk to David now and find out a little bit about him and his business. So, David, tell me a little bit about you.
Nothing startling to reveal, unfortunately, Chris. I'm a pretty boring sort of person, really. Born and bred in Essex, for want of a better phrase, as touched upon already. Could do with a haircut. Yeah, that's going to be the highlight next week, I think that is. I've missed out on my holidays this year, very, very regrettably.
Where are you planning to go?
I should have been going to Greece a couple of times this year already. Okay. But no, it didn't happen, mate. It didn't happen. Yeah, we always had the ambition. We
sneaked a long weekend to Dublin earlier in the year, and because it was my daughter's. My daughter was doing her GCSEs this year, so we planned a bit of a European trip around Europe, which clearly didn't happen. So I think we might go to Berlin for the Christmas markets later in the years, but I'm sort of holding on in terms of booking to see whether everything calms down first.
You and me both. I sort of penciled in the end of September to try and recover my Greece trip. But I'm not overly confident it's going to happen. I've just penciled it in at the moment, back end of September, early October. Yeah, might be a possible. But if we do run into this so-called second spike, back to square one again, aren't we? So it's like it could be a Christmas market somewhere, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Could be. Anyway, back to boring old me, if you like. Haven't been doing much during lockdown apart from work. Product business and decluttering. Most people have done. But I think I've created more clutter now. I've decluttered. I've got boxes everywhere of stuff I've got to get rid of, but I can't get rid of it.
Yeah,
so it's stuck everywhere.
Interestingly, one of the only practical jobs that I'm any good at is the tip run. So we've been doing a lot of tip runs over the past couple of weeks, trying to get rid of all the stuff. Tell me a little bit about your business.
Hold on, mate.
While David drinks his water, if you just to be clear, if you've got any questions, and thanks for the questions you've been sending in, some of which we'll be answering over future weeks. If you've got any questions or areas of money or business you'd like to talk about, or if you'd like to come on as a guest to Cervello Live, we're booked up all the way to the end of July now. We're taking a break in August, but we are booking guests for September. If you'd like to come on Cervello Live to talk about how your business supports other businesses, particularly if you're a local Havering-based business, feel free to give me a shout. It'd be lovely to share your story. I can see that David's finished his water, so he's ready now to tell us about his business.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chris. Got me so caught out a little bit there. Yeah, professional basis, did a little bit of background. I've done 25 years in the public sector. I've had 4 businesses covering retail. To my embarrassment, I had hairdressers at one time. Run a photography business, and now in business support. And that's where we're at the moment. We're based in Essex currently, and we serve South West Essex, East London broadly. We've been running about 15 years, which is as a private limited company. And originally the company was set up to pass on some of the understanding and insights that I've gained over the years on how the businesses might enter the public sector as a supplier. Right. How they should go about procuring goods and services was, if you like, something I had gained in my 25 years with the public sector. So I thought I could impart some of the intricacies and idiosyncrasies that the public sector seem to employ in commissioning and securing goods and services.
Because because a lot of that is about making sure that you go through the tender process and effectively you're ticking the right boxes, right?
Absolutely. And many companies and businesses didn't understand what the public sector requirements are. But I suppose more importantly, they didn't realise they needed a really robust distinguishing feature to set them apart from other potential suppliers. Public sector, to some extent, are very much, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type approach.
Yeah.
If you've got a good supply, it's like yourself, I suppose, in some respects, you tend to go back to the same supplier that you've had for your car servicing or whatever. You tend to go back to the same people.
Yeah.
For somebody else to prize you away from your tried and trusted supplier, you've got to have something that can distinguish you from the rest of the people out there in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And it sort of really came down to a matter of saying, okay, you need a distinguishing feature. What's a good distinguishing feature for you? Could be that you get yourself a certification, a non-financial certification, across the whole raft of evidence that you can supply what you say you can supply.
Yeah.
Whether it be at a trade level, whether you've got a trade professional certification, whether it be health and safety, or whether it be a British standard or an ISO.
Yeah.
That starts to put you on the train of a distinguishing feature.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we're doing some work at the minute with some solicitor partners of ours to help them work out what good looks like as a financial planner, because what lawyers are under new obligations to make sure that if they're referring work out to people like us, they need to make sure they show they've gone through a due diligence process. And previously, it used to be about a solicitor at a golf club picking his mate at the golf club, who might be a financial advisor, and working together. The Solicitors Regulation Authority are now saying that needs to be formalised. And I'm doing some work with some lawyers about. And the interesting thing is, lawyers need to have more than one financial advice firm on their panel. So we're going to be one of the panel of financial planners they use. But what we've actually recommended they do is actually not only have us, because you need particular specialisms. And actually, the local authority are pretty good about due diligence and robust process. But I suppose they're risk adverse, right? So they typically don't change when they've got something in play, and that's why ISOs and stuff like that are important as a differentiating factor.
Absolutely, you hit it in one. That risk aversion is what the public sector really have as an underpinning principle. That they just don't want to expose public money to a supplier who runs the risk not fulfilling the requirements of any contract being managed. You need to proving that you are well managed, not only on your balance sheet, but also the audited to prove that I am a well managed company. Health and safety certifications, as safe contractor, construction line, to make sure the company is obviously compliant in terms of its health and safety. But we go beyond that in looking at two primary areas of specification standards, BSs mainly, and if you like, the organisational standards, which could be covered really by the ISOs. And it's those areas that we feel that if a company can demonstrate they are not only meeting the service standards, but also having in place good procedures and practices for management of the company, that puts a bit more confidence back into particularly the public sector to engage them as a provider of a good or a service.
And
And that's really where it's coming from.
And
Yep.
for the uninitiated, what's an ISO and what's a British standard?
Right, well, British style BS or BSENs, EN is the European one. The British standards really, as I say, standards are broken down to two broad areas, which are the specification standards, which to some extent are covered by British standards. They're issued by British BSI, British Standards Institute, who set standards for everything. You buy a gallon of petrol, you'll probably see on the pump, it conforms to BS something or other. And everything you do should conform to a British standard. And international standards, the ISO, the International Standards Organization, or it's actually International Organization for Standards, usually, is, and as it says on the tin, if you like, ways of demonstrating your company or business or whatever complies to certain international agreed standards based in Geneva.
I mean, the way that I always remember it is the little kite mark. Do they still have that? Do they, on British standards, they have the kite that's on
It's still got a kite mark,
or whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's still there, mate. It's still there.
Still there.
There's hardly anything that you do or buy or whatever hasn't got some form of underpinning British standard about it.
Yeah. And the idea is that that's a sign that you're buying quality, right? It's a sign that you're making a good decision because it's been independently assessed. Is that correct?
Yeah, the British standards define characteristics that you're looking for within a product or a service. Certain things you will have implanted within your business to meet the requirements of an external audit to achieve that standard. Most standards run to several pages. They tell you what you are expected to do, have in place, and it's really about complying with that standard. Then on top of that, an external auditor coming in from an external company. I think I could probably name a few names, but there could be BSI themselves or Bureau Veritas or CCAS or Alchemist or whatever. They will come in and audit what you are doing to make sure that you are adhering to the requirements of the standard. So you get an annual external audit, which should in turn then give confidence to the buyer, particularly the public sector, that you are maintaining good standards of service and product delivery.
Right. Yeah. Why would you recommend like business owners sitting there and thinking, actually, I'm considering the next step in terms of my business, and I might be considering looking at a British standard within my business? Why would they do that? What advantage would it give them? What benefit is there?
Well, again, it comes back to giving confidence to the buyer that you are a professionally run company adhering to good standard and best practice. And that will be particularly picked up by the public sector who will look just to run. I don't know how familiar people are with the ISO 9001 certification. It concerns quality assurance. That's originally set up as a quality assurance standard. It's sort of morphed into more of a good management practice certification. I'll use this very, very carefully. It's now has got several features inculcated in it that will give confidence to the public sector that if you've been externally audited, they can feel fairly happy that you are running a professional business.
And that's the big thing, isn't it? That the big thing is if you're looking to tender for public sector contracts, they want to make sure that there's a shortcut, an intellectual shortcut they can make so that they can be confident that they're dealing with the right firms.
Absolutely. You got it in one, Chris. It gives that extra edge of confidence that the public sector buyer might wish to think, yeah, okay, there's a good company here, they're price competitive, they can deliver on time, they've got the capacity, they've got the competencies, and they've been exposed to examination by an external body to look at their systems and procedures, which have been confirmed as running a good professional company. So yeah, it comes back to the public sector taking if you like, a tick box route. If on a questionnaire they say, you know, what are your quality assurance standards, and you can tick the boxes, I've got an international standard 9001, then that will score you points. Okay. You know, to use the old language, points make prizes at the end of the day. It's another tick, excuse me, another tick in the box to make the buyer feel a lot happier.
So tell me a story about a business that you've worked with that has benefited from having I know the main one you work with is ISO 9001, isn't it? So talk to me about how a business has benefited from having that accreditation.
Right. Yeah, the ISOs in particular, what I personally deal with, the business deals with BSs and ISOs. The two favourite ISOs, or three really, I suppose. ISO 9001, which deals with quality, ISO 14001, which deals with environment, and 45001, which deals with health and safety issues. The old 18001, which wasn't an ISO, but it was converted into 45001. Right, as I say, but as far as I'm concerned, an ISO in particular, let's use ISOs for a moment, are the way for the company to demonstrate its competence. Right, so the best way to demonstrate it, I suppose, is to run through a case study, if you like. Would that be any help?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to rack my brain to think of a quick one. I don't think there's any competencies here. I do work with a security company. A few years back, were providing local security services and jogging along, but they wanted to take their business to the next level. But security, as you probably appreciate, is a highly competitive area. Cleaning and security are fairly highly competitive areas. They wanted some form of taking themselves to the next level and securing more robust contracts. They hadn't got anything in place which really distinguished them from the rest of the people in the marketplace. So, in collaboration with the MD of the business, we looked at what they got in place, which would distinguish them. They hadn't got very much. Took the view that if they managed to put together a number of BSs and British standards and ISOs, they would have a good platform for making sure they demonstrated they were a competent company. Security is a difficult one in some respects, because if you're looking at the British standards you need for it, there are, well, from their point of view, 3 British standards they needed. Without being too technical, is BS 7499, BS 7950 and 7858, which cover such areas as having competence in door supervision.
Right.
And that sounds a bit daft, but there's a standard, as I said earlier, there's a standard for almost anything out there. You want to talk about it.
It sounds like there's a standard for literally. Is there a standard for? I don't know. I'm trying to think of. Is there a shark diving? As we've decided, neither of us are definitely going shark diving ever again. Is there a shark diving standard? There's got to be a diving standard, hasn't there? Safety diving.
Paddy, you need Paddy, I would think, anyway. But that apart, it's highly likely, and I can't really speak for Cape Town, but it's highly likely that there is a standard for the supply of a shark diving service.
Yeah.
I'd be highly surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah.
I stand corrected on that, but I would think it's probably,
So this firm put the ISOs in place, and what happened to the business as a consequence
well,
of doing that?
yeah, just go back on that. The first stage is really for them to demonstrate they could provide a range of security services to a professional level. And as I say, you talk about BS 7499, 7858, and 7960. They are, if I can remember now, static site guarding, screening of staff, and door supervision. 7858, I'm going to get too technically, aren't I? BS 7858 is actually screening of staff per se.
Right.
And whatever you're in, 7858 is a very, very good screening of staff standards available. They're also lacking health and safety certification. They haven't got a chairs or a safe contractor construction line. And they certainly haven't got a 9001. 9001 is quite an intricate certification to achieve. But in any event, gap analysis we did to see where their shortfalls might be to allow them to actually apply successfully for these certifications. And to cut a long story short, in about 6 months, we had put these in place for them. So they successfully achieved all the certifications they wanted for health and safety, ISO 9001, and the BSTs I already referred to. Within about 18 months, about 18 months, they've managed to secure a 3-year contract worth just short of £500,000.
Okay.
Because they were suddenly elevated to a security provider to a professional security provider.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really by being able to point to these certifications, look, we have been externally audited. We can demonstrate that we are a good, sound, well-managed company adhering to minimum standards of service delivery. And away we go from that.
And I'd imagine there's a flip side to that, because certainly sometimes when you're a business owner, you work in this bubble of your own business, and sometimes having somebody external to say this is how you might be able to practically improve your business might be useful, mightn't it?
It allows you the tremendous ability, if you like, to stand back and look at how you could improve your company and see where your gaps are.
Yeah.
Because that's where our starting point. We will start with a gap analysis of what you've currently got. And unfortunately, many businesses believe they are a competent company until they're exposed to audit. The examination sometimes reveals that they ain't quite as professional as they thought they were, and they need to prove they are professional to the public sector in particular.
Yeah.
So it's a good way of doing things. Yeah, sorry, Chris.
And just not a planned question, but because you've been in business for so long, and I know you talked a little bit earlier about sharing your experience and skills, what are the key lessons you'd share to a young business owner starting out?
Done.
Okay, so an optimistic perspective, yeah?
Yeah, really negative approach that one, isn't it? Absolutely negative. I think there's still tremendous opportunities for companies out there to get a foothold into new and expanding areas. We've had a slightly, retrograde step in the last 3 months when things are not quite as robust as they were.
But you know what's interesting? You say that, and I've mentioned this on Cervello Live before, but my kids have got a thing on my fridge. They've taped it to my fridge because I was working from home, as we all were, for ages. Back in the office now, thankfully. But my kids posted something on the fridge because I was on the phone to all of my clients when investment markets went down, saying to my clients, "This too shall pass," right? This too shall pass. And I started Cervello. It wasn't called Cervello then, but I started my business in 2008 after the the market crash,
Good time to start. It's good
arguably
time.
the worst time to start a business. So I'm quite optimistic that not short term, but longer term, this too shall pass, right? And we will get back to a normal business environment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It may not be exactly the same. I think one of the features, I think from my own point of view, I can now certainly feel more confident in working from home. I don't think I need to travel up and down the A13
Yeah.
3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I can actually, through the abilities of Zoom and emails and stuff, start to work. And it's becoming more acceptable now to work from home. So I think, that's been one of the significant changes. So the landscape, I think, of the business environment will change. Also saving a lot of petrol as well. That's another matter. So it will change. But getting back to your original question, I think anybody starting out, certainly if they set a good foundation in place by trying to get a handle on all the policies, procedures and practices that they need to put into place, starts to build a good, sound company that has a future. They'll be accepted as a company who's interested in not just making a profit, but in providing a quality service. If you start talking I work a fair bit in the construction and construction-related industries, and very often when you start talking to these businesses about, how in depth is your health and safety system, very often it isn't a very robust health and safety system. What range of toolbox talks have you got in place? What's your document control procedures? How would you demonstrate your leadership and management?
Yeah.
How do you go about customer satisfaction record or collection of data and recording?
I suppose part of the challenge with that as well is that typically business owners are really good at what they do, but have never, certainly in my respect, and it probably took us 2 or 3 years to start getting the systems and processes in place, and we're still working on improving them consistently. I think when you start a business because you're good at what you do, not particularly because you're good at running a business, right? And that's where the support comes in.
Thank you very much for taking my next comment out of the frame. Yes, mate. Yeah. It's a good bricklayer doesn't necessarily make a good business manager.
Yeah.
And you need these things in place to make sure that you convince people that you not only can lay bricks, but you can run a company that's going to be sustainable.
But what we've learned over time is maybe that business owner isn't the right person to support that. Maybe you need somebody else in play to help you either internally as an employee or externally. And apologies, David, I didn't hear thunder outside and I didn't mean to steal yours, so apologies for that.
No problem.
Just so people can find out a bit more about you, where can you be found?
Well, email me if you like, or you can telephone me. The website's a little bit out of date now. It was due to be revamped last year and didn't happen because of a variety of circumstances. It's on the hit list of them. But if you want to ring me or email me, no problem at all.
What we'll do is when this goes out online, we'll make sure that your name. I'll make sure Russ puts your name, email address, and phone number on the show notes so that we can do that. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really useful, and certainly if you want a conversation about ISOs, British standards, and helping your business achieve those goals to make it more robust, particularly if you're tendering for local authority contracts, certainly have a chat with David about that. That's the end of the show today. Hope you found it really useful. We'll be back next Thursday with another amazing guest. As I say, if you've got any financial questions you want us to answer, any potential guests that you think that we should have on, or any topics you want us to cover, feel free to let us know. And have a lovely Thursday. Have a lovely remainder of the week and weekend. And we'll see you next Thursday on Cervello Live. See you later. Bye.